Welcome to the KM Builders Remodeling and Design Show. I'm Keith Moehle along with Morgan, and we also have Joe Caccino, and he is with BioGreen. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Thank you, Keith.
Yeah, it's glad to have you on. Joe and I met recently, and we've been talking about his incredible products and the services they offer to you as a homeowner. Now, sometimes on the show, we do a specialty show like this for something that we feel would really benefit our listeners, especially when it's something a little different or a little better than what is out there, and we want to get people informed about it. And that's how I felt after learning about Joe and BioGreen, which is the name of his company. BioGreen, he's the, how big is your area in BioGreen, Joe?
We actually do the whole San Antonio metro area. Primarily, we're in the Bexar County and Comal County and Guadalupe County. That's where most of the residents are. So that's primarily where our business
So
is.
any of you listeners in Guadalupe, Comal, and Bexar, then you certainly want to get a hold of Joe for the very best in lawn care. Nutrition is really what it boils down to, isn't it?
That's exactly right. Everything has changed. In the old days, it was just buy whatever you can at one of the big box stores and go put it out on your lawn. And we found out over the course of time, not only in lawn care services, but also in agriculture, that the synthetics are good for what they do, but there's several things that are detrimental to our environment. And also the fertilizers that we buy in don't contain the micronutrients that our product has. So basically what you're doing is you're just feeding your lawn nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium, and you're making them dependent upon those things, and the soil is just deteriorating. Whereas with our product, we have all the micronutrients that go into the soil. We don't use any phosphorus because soils generally have plenty of phosphorus. It's the fact that they've got so many salts in them from synthetic fertilizers that the plants aren't able to uptake those nutrients.
Is those salts? Do they come from from what's left over from the fertilizers?
No, it doesn't come from what's left over. What it is, it's what's from the manufacturing of them. When acids and bases are combined, they produce salts. And
which is not absorbed by the plant.
Well, exactly, and then what it does also is it keeps the plants from taking these nutrients up into the soil. So if you have enough iron in the soil, your plant may not be able to take it up because of that. And
because things are absorbed into the plants, just like in the human body, they found that some vitamins don't actually get absorbed into the body because it takes a combination. Is that kind of how it works with y'all?
That is partially true also. As far as the body goes, it absorbs only so much, and then the rest that we take, for instance, vitamins, if we're taking 1,000 milligrams, something our body may only be capable of taking in 500, so the other 500 go to waste. This is, when salts are in the soil, it actually is the defense mechanism in the plant that doesn't allow it to take these salts into the plant.
Because it would kill it.
Exactly.
And then it can't take the good stuff either.
Exactly.
Because it can't distinguish, because it says either we're absorbing or we're not absorbing.
That's right, because everything gets into the water, because that's how the plant absorbs everything, is through water.
Right.
So
all of it's soluble.
Exactly. Everything has to go into the water in order for the plant to take it up, except some small things that our product does, because we're also a foliar. In other words, when you're talking about fertilizers and things like that, foliar means it can be absorbed through the leaves, where our fertilizer does that, whereas your synthetic fertilizers don't. They actually go into the ground, they're dissolved with water, they get into the soil, and the plant takes it up to the roots. So with that being said, the benefits to having the micronutrients is we're able to use less nitrogen. So when we use less nitrogen, we don't have all that excessive nitrogen that's in the soil running off, getting into our waterways, and eventually causing some serious problems in the oceans. There's parts of the oceans, I just saw something on the news a few days ago, where they get excessive nitrogen into the water, and then you have the algae that just explodes. Well, when the algae dies out, then it eats up all the nutrients that are on the sea floor, and the animals that are on the sea floor don't get any of the nutrients. So it's kind of a thing.
And is this happening from runoff?
That's what it's attributed to mostly, is from over nitrogenation in the water, and it's from the runoffs, especially up in the Midwest area where there's a lot of agriculture going on. Even though there's more fertilizer being used in lawn services than there is in agriculture, there's more nitrogen going down into agriculture than there is into lawn services. So you see a lot more of the effects from runoffs from agriculture. Some states don't even allow you to use nitrogen in the summers because of the same thing. In the summertime, plants won't absorb all the nitrogen, so that goes to runoff. Consequently, you have all this additional nitrogen that gets into the waterways. Well, the other nice thing about BioGreen is we can blend our products as we go. So, for instance, in our area here, when summertime comes around, we back off of the nitrogen. We don't put as much nitrogen in as that we're going to use in the spring or the fall. We actually put more micronutrients in there. So we're getting more magnesium, more calcium, more iron, more sulfur, and all these things that are good for the plants that, again, your synthetic fertilizers don't have.
Mm-hmm. The micronutrients are different than nitrogen?
Yes, those are macronutrients. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, those are considered macronutrients. Micronutrients, just like it says, it's micro, they're smaller amounts. The plants don't require as much.
They don't, so they're trace amounts needed for that plant?
That's exactly right. And what we use to offset the phosphorus is sea kelp, cold water sea kelp. Those contain many of the micronutrients that we have in our product also. The other thing is carbon. Plants are 45% carbon. So the other thing that the synthetics don't have is this carbon. We have humic acid in all of our products, which is concentrated carbon, sort of.
Which is decayed matter?
That's exactly what it is. It's from the old days when everything decayed and became humics, and that's what we use in our products. So we're putting all this carbon back into the soil, and it's again amending the soil, and that's another part of our product. Is yes, we're feeding the plants, we're feeding the grass, we're feeding whatever, but we're also building the soil. So when you have weak topsoils, in time, our product will rebuild all that soil for you. Again, getting the micronutrients in there, getting the microbial life to come alive, and this also helps with, for instance, we have a lot of grub issues in San Antonio here because of the warmth and the climate. It's grubs just like to be down here.
Are those related to June bugs?
They are. That's the larvae of the June bug.
That's what I've always heard.
That's right. And the black Japanese beetle. Those are the two primary sources of grubs in our area. So with the micronutrients, we're also feeding a lot of the microbial life that actually attack these things and will eat them.
The good microbes.
Exactly. And instead of putting them into the soil, which a lot of organics have done, they recommend to put that stuff into the soil, we feed it. So whatever's in the soil, we're just growing those colonies. So instead of having to try to put them into the soil and hoping that they're going to survive long enough to get into the soil and be beneficial.
I got you.
Yeah,
because they have probably a short shelf life.
They do, and when you put them down, and speaking primarily of beneficial nematodes, that's the big thing. But they come in a sponge or something like that. They're almost microscopic. And then by the time you put them through a sprayer and get them out on your yard and everything, who knows how many you've lost.
I see. So if you're better off using what's there and making it mass produced.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, you covered one of my questions about those beneficial nematodes. But we're going to take a little break here. I want to recommend my friends at Billy's Western Wear. Oh, Greg White is a kind man, and he owns a great store there with his family. It's a family-owned business there at 1490 South Main Street in Bernie. If you go stop by, you're going to be impressed, and I hope you tell them that Keith sent you out there at KM Builders. And we'll be right back to the KM Builders Remodeling and Design Show. Welcome back to the KM Builders Remodeling and Design Show. I'm Keith Moehle, and I'm here with my friend Joe Caccino of BioGreen. And just to get it out there for everybody, biogreensa.com is where you can find a lot of information about him and how to contact him. It is a very interesting way of dealing with fertilization, weed control, and irrigation. So we're going to talk to him in depth because I felt like everyone on the show, so many of you would like to have something different, something that works better. And I know you like a beautiful lawn like I do. So Morgan's here with me, and she knows I take a lot of care about my yard. Would you agree?
Yep, especially this springtime coming up. That's why I think you're all have some congestion.
Yeah.
Working in the yard.
Well, that is true, right, Joe? You're going to get some allergies started up if you're out there.
Exactly, and weeds is a big thing right now.
Mm-hmm. So Joe did an assessment on my lawn too, so we'll be talking about that. But this is the year I'm hoping to really get it to where it's been in the past, and I've had trouble with my yard, and I think, and I'm looking for you. You just went out there today, and I'm looking for you to see if you might agree that one of the problems I had was not enough sunshine before, because I trimmed all these trees now, and I'm hoping to make a change. Was that a good thing?
I'm glad you told me that, because that was my first thing when I saw it. I said, "Oh, we don't have enough sunlight here." And I looked up at the trees, and the trees looked trim, and I go, "Well, maybe we have another problem."
Okay, good. So we haven't talked.
Told me, yeah.
We're discovering this live on the radio together. So
right.
We brought it to you all to just talk about it because I was very interested in what he had to say. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Fertilization, we talked about earlier. And I'm going to give your phone number out at 210-421-9522. We'll be mentioning it again and again in the show, but I really think y'all will love BioGreenSA.com website to get a hold of him and what BioGreen and Joe do with his team. It's a very unique approach. There's a lot of talk about organics, and I've used organics in my yard in the past, and it seemed to do a little bit of improvement. But I don't know if it was me not doing it as systematically as I should, or if there was something else I was missing. And I've done, by the way, I've had brown patch on my St. Augustine, and I don't know if it's Raleigh St. Augustine or what, but I have St. Augustine. And what's really interesting, I want to share this with you. I've done brown patch control by using the cornmeal, the ground cornmeal.
Corn gluten.
Corn gluten. I've done the gluten and just the cornmeal itself,
Mm-hmm.
and both times it killed it. But it seems I know it's subject to it. But now that I've trimmed the trees, I'm really hoping for some different results. But I think that there's not enough soil.
That's one thing I noticed. It's very compacted. Now,
Okay.
I don't know if it's just dry. You haven't started watering yet, because we have had some moisture. It fools us. The moisture that we've had isn't enough moisture really to get down into the soil, because we need subsurface moisture. Just what gets on the top doesn't get to the roots. So it is imperative that we water even during the winter. People don't think about it because the grass is dormant, but remember, it's dormant. It's not dead. So you still need a little bit of water on there. But I think nutrients, that's the biggest thing, and we get those nutrients in there, we'll get the microbial life going in. That'll help with the compaction problem. We with our product, it kind of aerates from the inside out, and when you have all the microbial life healthy, it's going to keep that ground more porous, so you're able to soak up a lot more of that water. So now what water you do put down, we'll be getting down into the soil profile, so it'll really help you out a lot instead of just running off.
Mm-hmm. So when grass doesn't grow good, I mean, I can say that I have a sprinkler system, and I don't think water has ever really been the issue. I have aerated even as late as a year ago, maybe a year. It might be a year and a half now. We aerated it, and we also have done the landscaping. What do you call that? That topping soil.
Top dressing.
Top dressing. We've done that a couple of years in a row. I haven't done it like in the spring and the fall, but I've done it in the spring. Last year, I think 2 years now in a row.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way, another way that I let people know about our product. It's kind of like using a compost, but instead of getting all the nutrients all at one time, and it's good for 3 or 4 months, and then it starts to wear off, with ours, you're getting a little bit of that all the time. In the agriculture business, it's called spoon feeding. Golf courses are excellent for doing that. They'll
Right.
put a little bit of nutrients out every week, instead of doing it every 6 weeks or 8 weeks like we do with residential. And that's primarily a cost factor. That's why we don't do it like that. But when you spoon feed, you're putting a little bit of nutrients down there, and it's able to absorb it all, kind of like what we were talking about earlier with the vitamins in the body. You put down a little bit of nutrients every time. Greenkeepers at a golf course, they'll fertilize every week. They'll put a little bit out every week.
That makes a lot of sense.
Sure, because the plant's able to use everything that you're putting down.
So if you're bodybuilding or exercising, you don't just skip your protein and then eat it once a week.
Exactly. It doesn't work, does it?
No, I don't think it would work too well.
No, it doesn't.
So, I mean, like you said, a lot of it's going to flush through the system. And I guess in lawns, that means some of it can wash away.
Some of it can. And that's the other nice thing about our product versus the granular products. When you put a granular down, it does start to leach out through your into your water system and get down to the soil profile. With ours, it's absorbed immediately. The grass will absorb some of it, not much. Others plants absorb a lot more than grass does, but the soil is going to absorb all that right away. So unless you just have a 10-inch rain or something, everything that you put down is getting into the soil.
That's good. Yeah. So, I mean, and so yours are mixed differently than others. You have a little bit of some of the. You have a little bit of the, what do you call, synthetics in there?
Yes, we're a hybrid. In other words, we've taken all the good things from the organics, but organics generally don't have enough nitrogen in them. And the reason that they don't,
I see. That might have been what I was suffering from.
Could have been. Now there are organic forms of nitrogen, but it's things like animal waste products which contain salts. So now you're back to the same thing. You're putting salts back into your soil.
I see.
If you do the chicken or the turkey pellets for nitrogen, those are good, but they're inconsistent. They can carry airborne diseases. So there's lots of things that go along with that. And then there's fish emulsions, which is the other good source of nitrogen. However, that's really bad. That fish, you can smell that fish stuff.
Oh, bad smelling?
I had an agricultural customer up in Colorado, and somebody talked him into using that one time. He called me and said, I almost had to quit using my equipment. It was so bad. So,
even the equipment stunk.
Exactly. So he went back to BioGreen again.
There you go. Well, that does sound like some good reasons. Having a non-stinky yard is a good thing.
Yeah.
So a smelly yard. I've been in many yards. It was like, whoa. You take a whiff of that when you walk up.
Yeah, especially in compost. They use a lot of cow manures and things like that, which, like I said, are good, but they have side effects.
Well, I'm looking forward to a good-looking yard this year with your advice, and one that doesn't smell. So I think that's a good thing. We're going to have to take a break, but I wanted to just mention our sponsor there at North Park Lexus at Dominion. This type of quality that we look for in the products we want in our homes is there, but not only the quality like Joe's company, BioGreen, the service and the advice, the technical expertise, the customer service is huge in everything. It's the same in remodeling. It's what we're known for, but I can't speak enough about North Park Lexus at Dominion. We're glad to have them as a sponsor of our radio show and even our social media. And we've done some videos with it with the wife's brand new RX 350, and it is incredible. You don't pay extra for customer service with K & Builders, and you don't pay extra for it at North Park Lexus and Dominion. I know because I shopped price on that car. And so if you'd like the best, give them a call at 816-6000. Ask for my friend Al Cavazos. And we'll be right back to the K & Builders Remodeling and Design Show. Welcome back to the K & Builders Remodeling and Design Show, and we are back with BioGreen, and I have Joe Caccino at BioGreen, and you can find him at biogreensa.com, or give him a call at 421-9522. That's the area code 210-421-9522, and we're talking about a product that I believe in. When it's organic, I have a lot of good feelings about it. I knew very little about soil nutrients, but I did know enough to know that strictly synthetics was rough on our environment. I've heard a lot of talk about that, and you definitely agree with that, right?
Oh yeah, it's and it's nothing new. Everybody's known about it. There's just not ever been an effective, cost-wise way of doing this. And also the other thing is we all like instant gratification. So if you're using organics, it takes a little longer for everything to work. So that's why we've gone with this kind of a hybrid method where we do use some synthetics. However, we use liquid nitrogen. Liquid nitrogen contains a lot less salts than synthetic granular does.
I see.
And again, with the micronutrients, we don't need to use that much nitrogen either. So we really cut down a lot on the nitrogen usage. And that's the biggest part of the environment that gets affected is with nitrogen. So our fertilizer is, like I said, all organic based. We have insecticides that are all organic based because, like particularly in your yard with St. Augustine is an excellent candidate for chinch bugs and grubs. I don't know why they like it so much, but that's their choice grass of choice. So our insecticides are all organic, and then our fungicide, which is another thing that people don't think about. You were talking about brown patch earlier. Organic fungicides are very detrimental to the soil ecology. They will eat up the bacteria that's in there, and bacteria is beneficial. And those are things that we've all learned recently. And so
Organic fungicides?
organic fungicide.
And what's the purpose of them? To kill weeds?
No, fungicide kills fungus. Brown patch is a fungus.
Oh, okay.
Take all patch is a fungus.
Okay.
And those are normally in the fall is when they happen the most, because they need to have water, they need to have warm days, cool nights. So fall for us here in San Antonio is all of the above.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had my share of them.
Anybody with St. Augustine gets it.
And it's still one of the preferred grasses for shady areas.
It's the only one for shady areas. So if you're dealing with shade, absolutely. And there's several different hybrid St. Augustine grasses. The palmetto is really good. It's developed in South Carolina. It's very good for shade. That's primarily what they're out for. Then also we have Floritam, which is...
I've heard that's really good.
It is a combination of Florida and Texas A&M. So that's why you get Floritam from.
Okay.
So that's how that was designed by those two universities. And it's very good in the shade as well. So we are as organic as we possibly can be. The only thing it's not is our weed control. Unfortunately, there's no such thing as selective weed control that is organic, meaning that you can spray it on the grass and it'll only kill the weeds, it won't kill the grass. There are lots of methods organically for killing things, but it is not selective and it'll kill anything you put it on. So unfortunately we can't use that in most of our situations.
So what do you use?
Well, we go through and we pick some of the most environmentally friendly herbicides that there are out there. We use a lot of Bayer products, Celsius being one, Certainty being another, Speed Zones by Gordon's, but that's also very friendly to the economy, to the environment as much as it can be. I mean, all of these things, if they're not used properly, can be detrimental. So,
and you could spray those broadcast and over the entire yard.
That's right. We don't do that very often because it goes back to trying to be as organic as we can. We spot treat.
Spot treat is better.
Right, because you're only putting those herbicides down on the weeds themselves. And right, you're not, if you don't have any weeds, why put herbicides down? You know?
Well, I believe in organics, but I still use Roundup or something like it. I've used it.
Yeah,
but I only spray those weeds only.
That's a whole new conversation that's just come up in the last couple of months.
Yeah, there's still a lot of debate on how harmful they can be to humans, but as far as like let me ask you this, since we're talking about weeds, if you spray it only on a weed and that's all you got, is it going to hurt the ground around it? If it was just like, say you just actually brushed it on the weed itself.
If you could be that meticulous, in putting and applying it, it wouldn't. But it's too hard to do that. You got to kind of spray it out. So you're going to get it on the grass, and that's why we use selective weed killers.
Right. No, that's stuff. If you touch a piece of grass, that grass is gone.
Exactly.
It's powerful.
It is. It's very.
So you don't. I know you don't use that because it's too. It's way too strong.
Well, we just use it as it's prescribed by the label. And if you use everything by the way the label is, then it's okay. You just don't want to overuse it. That's why we don't do blanket applications of the herbicide. We only do the herbicide right on the weeds. Most herbicides are systemic, meaning that it has to be absorbed through the leaf in order for it to get into the root system. Mm-hmm. So that's why we just spray the weeds themselves, and we don't put an over amount of herbicides down the grass.
But if you're spraying it on a weed and you get a little on the grass, it won't kill the grass?
Nope, it's because it's selective. Now what you're talking about is non-selective in the Roundup case. That kills everything. Mm-hmm. But that's non-selective versus selective, and we use all selective.
And if I were to use that in the future, I could literally brush it on a weed and then.
You could, but you're a lot better off if you're doing it in the grass. You're just better off to get a selective type of herbicide.
And it'll actually work as good.
It'll work better, maybe.
Oh, well, that's good to know. I've always thought the most powerful thing was going to be the best.
Not true. Not true.
Not always
you're
true.
You're one of those. Have two is good, four is better.
Yeah, I kind of like that. You know, hey, if they make a 500 horsepower car, I want a 707 horsepower Hellcat.
Gotcha.
And I got the proof sitting in my garage.
There you go.
So, okay, but I can be talked down off from that if somebody shows me, explains it to me. And that's why you're here and you're explaining it to me about my yard as we speak. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some of these incredible products that are offered through BioGreen. But we're going to talk about our sponsor, Legacy Heating and AC Services, for your home. Now is the time to call them and get a free assessment. You will love their customer service. We wouldn't bring anyone to you, whether it's Joe and BioGreen or whether it's Chad Briggs and Legacy Heating and AC Services. Look them up at legacyservicesac.com. And be sure and mention that I mentioned them, because they like to know where they're getting their leads from. And we'll be right back in just a few moments to the KM Builders Remodeling and Design Show. Welcome back to the KM Builders Remodeling Design Show. There's 3 of us in the studio today with you, and it's me and Morgan and Joe Caccino of BioGreen. And look them up at biogreensa.com. And I want to give you that number. I'll give it to you at the end of the show in just a few more minutes at 210-421-9522. Of course, if you have any questions, you remember you can always get us at KM Builders at kmbuilders.com, and we'll help you find Joe. He's working on my yard, and tell me what you're going to do with my yard, Joe.
Well, the first thing we do is we go out and assess it, and after looking at your yard and knowing that we don't have a shade issue, I can tell that we have a nutrient issue right away. So what we'll do is we'll come out with our spring blend of fertilizer, which contains all the micronutrients we've been talking about, as well as the nitrogen and the sea kelp, which is going to help in the stimulation of root growth. And that's what we need to do. We need to get those roots really going and get them growing deep so that they're not affected by drought and things like heat. So it kind of fools the plant a little bit when the roots get really deep, and it just makes it healthier and they're not all stressed out.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Here's a question. I know you're going to go further with it, but building up that soil, some of those low spots, or should I be adding a top dressing?
We can, and this is a perfect time to do it. You want to go with some type of sand and compost mix. That way, if you're using it for filling, if you're just using it for nutrition, you just go with the straight compost. But if you're going to be using it to filling, you need something that's going to fill it, because that compost eventually will break down and you'll be right back to where you were.
That's probably why it hasn't filled up all these years.
Could be.
I've been trying to fill those spots, but they still stay there.
They will. So we'll go back and we'll get that done. First thing we're going to do is get the weeds out of there. You have a few weeds, and we don't want anything that is competing for nutrients with the grass, so we'll take care of the weeds. And then we'll just go back and put the fertilizer down, and we'll get you on a good watering schedule so that we're watering the right amounts at the right time, and to drive those nutrients down to the roots so that the plants can uptake it.
Because if you water excessively, they don't go as deep.
That's right. And then also, when your ground is really wet, there's no air down there, and plants need air, believe it or not. That's why you always till. In agriculture, they always till the soil to get that air back down into the soil.
But you can't do that with a lawn, because you till up all your grass.
Right, and that's where we do deep tine aeration if it's really needed. It's the same thing. It's just not tilling.
Right.
But it gets the air down into the surface. So you don't want a whole lot of water down there. You want the right amount of water, and that's something we'll look at and get the right.
That is interesting. I always thought that aerating was to let the water go in, but it says aerate. Hello, it's got the word aerobic in it.
That's right. That's right, and it does both. It does help the water to get down in there.
That's good. That's good. So fertilizing first and then the top dressing, or reverse order?
Either way, probably it would be best in this case, being that you do have some weed issues, is to go in there and get rid of the weeds, put a little nutrients down, then we can come in with the top dressing, and then we can start with our regular applications. If you go to the website, you'll see that our annual package, and we've gone over and put this together for people because it works best. We do 6 fertilization treatments throughout the year at intervals of 6 to 8 weeks. And then we do 2 organic insecticide treatments in the late spring and early summer, and those are primarily for grubs and chinch. And then in the fall, we'll do 2 applications of an organic fungicide, and that's to prevent any kind of fungus that we might get at that time of year. And then we do our weed control throughout the whole year for post-emergence, and then we do 2 applications of a pre-emergent, which will keep the seeds from germinating. So that way it's helping us to control the weeds throughout the whole year.
Should be less and less each year then.
Exactly right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, man, that sounds like an extremely comprehensive program. I know we had talked about it before when we met in the past. and we said we were going to get started this year on it. So I'm looking forward to really, really different results. I love my yard. My wife puts plants, flowers out, and I do the landscaping and cutting and the tree trimming and so forth. And you know, that yard was, by the way, Joe, all those trees I planted.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, you got some nice trees there.
They're big, aren't they?
They're beautiful.
Yeah. So
really
they've been getting some water somehow.
Right.
I don't know about my grass, but but I'm just frustrated with that grass.
I think the sunlight was probably a big
factor.
It is. I think so.
So that's what you said you saw when you first looked at it.
That was my first opinion. Yep. So we'll get some nutrients down there. We'll get it going. It'll start looking good for you. We'll get rid of some of that compaction so we can get some water down there and the soil profile a little deeper.
Yeah.
So it'll be all good. And I want to pass along to any of your listeners that contact us and tell us K&M Builder. That's where they heard from us. We're going to give you $50 off on an annual package.
That's great. That's great. And the annual package is really the way to go, because you actually have time to work with the yard and get it right.
Well, not only that, but different times of the year, different amounts of water that we receive from Mother Nature and sunlight, things like that. You do everything different. We blend our fertilizers every time we go out. That's the beauty of the BioGreen. It's not something you buy in the bag and you go out and you put it out. We're able to blend it by the season, by the grass even. Some grasses require more nitrogen than other grasses.
Kind of like what we do in remodeling. It's a custom price that we're giving you, because what we're going to be doing in your house needs different than someone else's. And so we need to assess it accurately first, and that's what you've done with me, is you've given me an accurate assessment. And now you'll be able to come up with a custom-built plan for my needs.
That's exactly right.
Well, I love that approach, and that's why you're on the radio with me today, because I wanted to see other people to hear how you approach things. You know, not only doing it naturally, but you're not so stuck in a rut that you can't say, you know what, for this particular thing, we need maybe a little bit of synthetic, but we don't want to overdo it. And so I like the very custom approach that y'all offer at BioGreen. And again, for all of y'all listening, BioGreenSA.com is where you find Joe at 210-421-9522. I wouldn't bring him on the show, you know that, if I wasn't a believer, and I believe that he will work for you too. So BioGreenSA.com is where you find out. There's a $50 discount for all KM Builders references there, if you just let them know you heard it on KM Builders. And we are glad to be with you this Saturday. We're going to have to say goodbye because we're running out of time. But if you have any questions and you forgot any of that information, just log on at kmbuilders.com or call us at 680-5626, and we'll get you in touch with Joe. And y'all have a great weekend. And remember, you could have someone else remodel your home, but then you'd have to live in it.